The FPS genre has had some stale moments here and there, or so the internet will have you believe. And for the most part, it's people that only really play AAA games that moan about the state of shooter games until the next Doom comes along and then they're satiated. But personally, as a guy who mainly plays indie games, there are constantly incredible FPS games coming out, especially recently. I love Ultra Kill, and anyone who hasn't played it should go check it out, especially with a new layer coming out soon. But of course, most people who are into shooter games and or indie games will know Ultra Kill. So I want to mainly highlight some smaller but equally fun shooter games that have come out in the past year or so. I'm just gonna rip the band-aid off early with this one. This game is free. You can go on Steam and download it right now for $0. The only thing you can possibly lose by checking out this game is your time. This is STRAFTAT, a previously 1v1 arena shooter that now has a 2v2 and a 4-player free-for-all mode that was added in a recent update. The game is high octane, and I personally think it toes the line perfectly of being a really sweaty game, but also retaining a more party game feel, especially if you are playing with friends as opposed to randoms online. The game has an array of really fun weapons that span from your typical FPS guns, to melee weapons, to explosives, to whatever the fuck this is.
Also, what is this
thing do?
Hand cannon. Oh, cool.
If you are a fan of fast gunplay and satisfying movement, you are going to love STRAFTAT. The movement is insane. You can wall jump and slide, which makes for some insanely cool and clippable moments, especially with how some of the maps are laid out. Speaking of maps, there are a ton of them. Some are more leaning into the party game or gimmick feel to keep things fresh, while others are just outright fun as hell to traverse. What's even crazier is you can buy a DLC to gain access to 150 plus extra maps, and exclusive weapons, plus some other cosmetic stuff. I haven't purchased this and have had a ton of fun so far, so it's absolutely not necessary, but it does support the developers and lets you have more content to keep things fresh. If you are a fan of Deep Rock Galactic, you have to check out Mycopunk. This game mixes in the core gameplay loop of Deep Rock Galactic with elements from games like Helldivers 2 and Risk of Rain 2, tying it all together with the visual style of Lethal Company. You know a game is gonna slap when you spend 30 minutes fucking around in the hub area before even touching the tutorial level. Pick up my head, by the way, don't revive me, pick up my head.
Does this move your camera?
I can see you. It's like a fisheye cam fucking... Whoa!
I got an achievement. Make a basket with another player.
Wait, revive me.
Alright, you know what to do.
The game only just released into early access about a week ago and currently has 4 playable characters, all with 2 unique abilities each, and a whole skill tree to level up and customize your gameplay experience. The skills you unlock for both your abilities and weapons become these shapes that you have to fit into slots to optimize your build. I haven't played long enough to really have to worry too much about this, but it will be very interesting to micromanage in the more late game missions. Much like Deep Rock or Helldivers, there is a variety of mission types and areas you can deploy into, with hordes of enemies attacking you while you do so. What I love about the enemies in this game is that they have these central points and limbs that come off of them. You can kill the center part and the limbs or weapons will fall off to the ground, and the next enemy that comes along could pick it up if you don't also kill those limbs or weapons. So you have to always be wary that you're finishing off the whole enemy, otherwise you're just giving more ammunition for the next enemy that comes along. The game is best experienced in co-op, as most of these sorts of games are. You can play with up to 4 players. Overall, it's a super fun game to play with friends, and even in early access, I'd say it's definitely worth checking out. If you're looking for a more solo experience, Project Silverfish is a single-player extraction shooter with heavy immersive sim elements. I went into this game completely blind, as me and my friends have started a game club, essentially a book club but for video games, and this game was picked. It had just been released and looked very intriguing. Going in completely blind was great. I had no idea what to expect, and what I got was a semi-tactical shooter with some insane world building and lore that feels heavily inspired by SCP. I absolutely did not expect this game to suddenly lean heavily into horror, but it worked so well, and I found myself becoming very immersed whenever I was clearing out underground facilities or dark buildings. There are multiple factions at play throughout the world, and how you act and the choices you make will affect your reputation with these groups, and determine whether or not they will shoot you on sight or be chill with you. I managed to get a negative 19,000 reputation with one of the neutral factions, which for context, the faction that starts off hating you and are labeled fascists starts at negative 600. However, I don't want to talk about the atrocities I committed to herald such a reputation. Let's just say there were some areas and some missions I could not do because of this reputation. The game can be very brutal at times, and there are lower and higher difficulties that you can try to customize your experience, along with different characters with unique traits and a shitload of debt you can inherit. It's just like real life. The weapon and item variety you find throughout the world keeps it feeling fresh. The game is in early access and I have 19 hours in the game. In that time, I feel like I've explored most of the map, but there's still a lot of content for me to do. So although it's a bit pricier for an indie early access title, you can definitely get your money's worth. The most adrenaline-pumping game on this list is without a doubt Mullet Mad Jack. This was one of my favorite games I played last year. It took about 3.5 to 4 hours to beat, but the game is so addicting I immediately needed to 100% it, which took about 9 to 10 hours. The game is a part of the new subgenre of shooter where you just run through corridors shooting enemies, which, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe was popularized or maybe even invented by Post-Void back in 2020. Mullet Mad Jack, in my opinion, is a little nicer on the eyes than Post-Void, and takes a lot of what Post-Void does well and cranks it up to maximum. The game leans into satire of streaming, which could have easily fallen flat or even leaned into being cringe, but the game is surprisingly very funny. They even got the voice of Gabriel from Ultra Kill, Gianni Matragrano, to voice a character. Your health bar is how much time you have left. Killing an enemy gives you more time, but getting hit retracts time. It's a simple premise, but it can get absolutely insane on the higher difficulties. There's not much else to say about this game. It's funny, addictive, and overall an absolute blast. I have never played a game that made me feel more like John Wick than I Am Your Beast. You can throw bear traps at enemies' faces, you can shoot beehives down on them, throw knives, and of course shoot a lot of guns. Most levels consist of running from one end to the other and doing some sort of task while killing every enemy in sight. You get a score based on how quickly you beat the level and how many enemies you kill, plus how you kill those enemies. So if you want to 100% the game, you have to start plotting out the perfect path through the level to maximize your score but also minimize your time. The game has a story that is told through these voice acting segments before the levels, which I thought was a pretty cool way to go about telling a story on an indie budget. They don't feel intrusive and the voice acting is really good. After getting the feel of this game, you will fall into a flow state, using every item in sight as a weapon and absolutely zooming through the levels. If you like leaderboards and letter grades, like in Ultra Kill, you will love I Am Your Beast. Honestly, this list could go on and on and on, with other bangers like Incision, Fallen Aces, Cultic, Voidborn, H-Rot, Killbug, Chambers the Outlaw, Gloomwood, Forgive Me Father 2, Paperhead, Sulaco, Turbo Overkill. But I don't want to keep you here all day, and who knows, maybe I'll make a follow-up video with more suggestions. But for now, these are all fantastic indie shooter games that I'm sure you'll love in some way, especially if you're a fan of Ultra Kill. Don't listen to what the public zeitgeist has to say. Indie games are absolutely killing it right now, and in many cases are more worth your money than many of the double or AAA releases. Thank you for watching, and I will leave you with a question. What is your current favorite FPS game?